most people when they have difficult emotions, our reaction is to try to not feel them. It's to try to either avoid them, suppress them, resist them, distract ourselves, numb ourselves. You only see two choices, black and white. You only see the choice where you either do that and you suppress, avoid, resist your emotion, or you will be swept away by it. It will completely overwhelm you, make you lose control, do things you regret and stay stuck in it and just feel traumatized. But it's a false dichotomy. There's a third option that no one has told you about until now, but it exists. The feeling with freedom option. It is possible to both feel your emotions while still staying present, while still staying in awareness, while not being overwhelmed, while listening to the emotion without being sucked into it, and while still being able to choose your behavior, still being able to choose a constructive, mindful response for your emotions instead of just reacting blindly. You go from being controlled by emotions to maybe trying to control your emotions back, which is still being controlled by emotions, to finally starting to actually feel them with freedom.
Welcome back to Talk the Walk, where we explore how to walk your journey of healing, growth, and transformation with more success, ease, and joy.
So we are already in Module 3. Welcome. This is our Module 3 of the Emotional Mastery Academy. And today we're going to be talking about feeling with freedom. How to feel our emotions with freedom. And why are we talking about that? Well, it's very simple. Because we have so far learned that first, your emotions, even those that seem to hurt you and harm you, they actually are trying to help you. And the thing that makes them dysregulated, out of control, and harm you, it's actually the number one reason is that you're not listening to them. You're not receiving the information and the message that they have to bring you, to tell you. And maybe you don't like the message, but you're confusing the message with the messenger, and you're trying to kill the messenger not to hear the message. And that just makes your emotions dysregulated. So you're going to have to learn how to listen to them. And the best way to listen to your emotions is by feeling them. And then second, we also learned that the reason why your emotions are dysregulated, exactly, and they are in survival mode, it's because of that, and it's because they feel there's a lack of safety. They feel there's some threat, some unsafety. And in the past module, you learned how to cultivate that sense of inner safety, that place, that presence inside of you that is able to welcome and love all parts of you, all emotions. But now, having that is beautiful and life-changing, but now you actually need to bring that inner safety to your emotions. You actually need to make your emotions feel safe, not only have that inner safety inside of you, but actually bring it to your emotions. And how do you bring safety to your emotions? Well, think about it. The reason why they don't feel safe is because it's not safe for you to have them, to feel them. So the way to make them feel safe again is to feel them with safety. And that's why feeling your emotions is so important. And that's why we are going into it today, but only after we've done the previous steps. This is very important, as you're going to see today. Trying to go directly to feel our emotions before the previous steps of meeting our emotions and reconnecting with safety, it's not going to be so helpful and sometimes can even be unhealthy for you. So this is why this is the third step, the third module. And this is going to also be very powerful for you because it's going to finally allow you to actually get the information, get the wisdom, get the energy and the help from your emotions without having to fight them or suppress them or lose that information and lose that wisdom, but with safety, feeling them in a way that makes it feel safe for you. So basically feeling them with freedom. That's what we're talking about here. And this is exactly how we need to start this conversation, because when I say, oh, you're going to feel your emotions, there's probably at least a dozen fears inside of you that come up. No, right? I don't want to feel my emotions. That's not something that I want to do. Especially, some of them I can feel, but especially the ones that you want me to feel, Philip, no, not those ones. Those ones are the scary ones. Those are the negative ones. I don't want to feel them. So those fears make sense and they're not stupid. So let's understand them. There are the most common fears that people have of feeling their emotions are easy to understand. So the first fear is the fear of overwhelm. The fear that your emotions will come, you will let yourself feel them, and then you'll just be completely overwhelmed by them, just like under them, not even being able to breathe. And maybe that's been your experience with feeling some of these difficult emotions, and it makes sense that you feel that. So the question is, does it have to be that way? And the answer is, today we're going to learn a way, in this module we're going to learn a way that you can feel your emotions without being overwhelmed by them, and what really creates the overwhelm. Second, it's the fear of losing control. And the fear of, if I let myself feel that emotion, then that emotion will make me make choices, take actions, say things that are actually not good for me or for my goals, and I will regret them. And again, this makes sense. For most of you, when you feel some strong emotion, even especially a dysregulated, difficult emotion, and you just feel it, it takes control of you and it makes you do things and say things that you later regret. It's been your experience, it makes sense, that's how it typically works. But again, today the question is, can we feel our emotions in a way that we don't lose our capacity to choose our behavior? And that's exactly what we're going to be seeing, what we're going to be talking about. There's also the fears of the emotion being stuck under the emotion forever. Like, if I let myself feel this sadness or this fear, it's gonna be there forever. And as we're going to see, this is not true. When you really allow yourself to feel your emotions, they transform. There's the fear of re-traumatization. Like, oh, if I feel my emotion like this, I'm just going to go back to that pain that created it, and it's just going to feel painful again, and I'm going to feel unsafe again and re-traumatize myself. And again, this is a very logical fear. It makes complete sense, and that can happen if you don't know how to feel your emotions with safety. But the way you're going to learn is how to feel them with safety, which is why this third module of feeling your emotions only comes after the second module of reconnecting with safety. And in many, even most, healing, self-regulation approaches and modalities, you are just told to feel your emotions without having been able to first develop that inner safety. And that's why for many people it's overwhelming and it's even re-traumatizing. So the way that you're going to learn is not going to be like that. It's with safety. You're going to feel your emotions, but not just feel them. You're going to feel them with safety. And finally, there's also the fears of what you're going to find out if you let yourself feel that emotion. Like, you actually don't want to hear that message, right? That the emotion wants to tell you. You actually are afraid of letting that thing that the emotion wants to tell you be true. And so you don't want to feel your emotion because you don't want to listen to it, because you don't want the message that it has to give you, you don't want it to be true. So you're in avoidance. And the thing there is, it doesn't change whether you listen to it or not, if it's true or not. But listening to it helps you do something about it and helps you actually do the healing that needs to be done. And sometimes the emotion just needs you to listen to it. It doesn't even mean that it's true. It's not about being true or not true. It just needs you to listen to it. So these are the common fears, and that's why most people don't really want to feel their emotions. That's why most people, when they have difficult emotions or emotions that they don't like or that bring them difficult messages, our reaction is to try to not feel them, right? It's to try to either avoid them, suppress them, resist them, distract ourselves, numb ourselves, manage our experience so we don't have to feel them, with all the different negative, unhealthy coping mechanisms that brings. That's what most people try to do, because for you only see two choices, black and white. You only see the choice where you either do that and you suppress, avoid, resist your emotion, or you will be swept away by it. It will completely overwhelm you, make you lose control, do things you regret, and stay stuck in it and just feel traumatized and cannot deal with that situation. So you only know those two options: either not feel the emotion, try your best not to feel that, or feel it and be overwhelmed and lose control. So those are the only two options that most people know and see because it's in your experience, but it's a false dichotomy. There's a third option that no one has told you about until now, but it exists. And that's exactly the third option that we're learning here today. It's the feeling with freedom option. It is possible to both feel your emotions while still staying present, while still staying in awareness, while not being overwhelmed, while listening to the emotion without being sucked into it, and while still being able to choose your behavior, still being able to choose a constructive, mindful response for your emotions instead of just reacting blindly. So all of this is possible. Not just feel it and be overwhelmed, not just resist it but stay in control, which is actually not control. You actually have a third option, which is to fully feel an emotion and stay present with it and stay in control and get the information and not be overwhelmed. And that's what we call feeling with freedom, because that's the only way that you can truly be free. Think about it. If you are overwhelmed by your emotions, of course you're not free. You're controlled by them. But if you're fighting them or resisting them or avoiding them, you're also not free, because you are stuck in that fight. They're still controlling you. It's just that you're trying to fight back. So the only way to actually have freedom in your emotional experience is to be able to feel all emotions, whatever they are, in a way that you can be with them, yet you're not in them. You're not being controlled and overwhelmed by them. That's what feeling with freedom means, and that's the promise of today. So let's get into that. How do we actually feel with freedom? How do we do that? And for that, we have to understand what in your emotions make you be overwhelmed and react blindly and impulsively. So what leads to what we call the automatic reaction in emotions, and what makes you feel like you lose your awareness, lose yourself in the emotion? What is that? Well, that's actually a very core part of the emotional process, of the functioning of emotions. They are designed in a way to work like this when it's needed. And that thing is called, in emotional science, in psychology, is called the refractory period. Refractory period. So refractory just means something that is resistant to change, that is hard to change. And so the refractory period is a period during which an emotion is taking control of you, grasping your mind, your body, your behavior, the way you think, the way you feel, the way you see everything, the way you reason and evaluate situations, and of course the way you feel, the choices you make. During that period, the refractory period, the emotion is basically controlling you. You are in its control, and this is part, in a way, of how emotions function. They are biologically, physiologically designed to have this refractory period, because remember, their priority, before they help you thrive, their priority is survival. And with our evolutionary history and all of how our biological body works, survival, when it's in question, when there's a threat to survival, then you have to act to it, not think about anything else, right? If a tiger is coming after you, you don't have time to think, oh, I wonder how much does that tiger weigh, or I wonder what did this tiger do today, right? Or I wonder what painting can I do of this situation? What art can I create from this, right? All of those functions are shut down, and your mind and body and brain and emotions, they are just going to focus fully on that thread there. So that's why the refractory period makes sense evolutionarily. It exists for a reason. It exists to make your emotions and make you just focus on that thing and just think about that thing and just take care of that thread right now, without any other thing getting in between, without losing any more time or energy, even automatically. So it makes sense evolutionarily, biologically, in survival terms. The problem is that when we're not in the survival situation anymore, like we are in most day today, luckily, happily, then it's actually putting you back in survival mode and preventing you from thriving and preventing you from having that choice, but from being present, from choosing responses that are more helpful for you and thriving and acting and speaking consciously in a way that leads to a more beautiful life and helps you achieve your goals. So that's the refractory period. And when you are inside it, what you have to understand is that actually I want to bring you a quote here from a psychologist, Paul Ekman, who studied emotions in a very deep way. And his quote perfectly describes the refractory period. So let me read it for you. Paul Ekman says in his book, Emotions Revealed, emotions can prevent us from having access to all that we know, to information that would be at our fingertips if we were not emotional, but that during the emotion is inaccessible to us. When we are gripped by an inappropriate emotion, we interpret what is happening in a way that fits with how we are feeling and ignore our knowledge that doesn't fit. So emotions change how we see the world and how we interpret the actions of others. We do not seek to challenge why we are feeling a particular emotion. Instead, we seek to confirm it. We evaluate what is happening in a way that is consistent with the emotion we are feeling, thus justifying and maintaining the emotion. And this is the refractory period, and this is exactly the thing that keeps us stuck, keeps us overwhelmed without choice, and reacting blindly, compulsively. So, if we want to learn how to feel with freedom, guess what? We're going to have to learn how to not be in the refractory period. How to not be in the refractory period. So we're going to learn how to either leave the refractory period when we are already in it, or completely avoid it, even if possible. So is this possible? Well, it is, with practice and with training. So another quote from you, this time from Viktor Frankl. This one says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. And in that response lies our choice and our freedom. Something like that. It goes something like this. I'm saying it from memory. So there is a space between trigger and your response. And that space is the space where the emotion is triggered, and then the refractory period settles in, and then it makes you overwhelmed and makes you take that reactive, that reaction, that automatic reaction. And so it's between that space that we can act if we want to recover our awareness, our choice, and feel emotion with freedom. It's in that space. It's during that refractory period, or if possible, even before it. So this is possible to act in this short space, and for some people, and in some situations it's shorter. For some other people, in other situations, it's a wider gap. But we can learn how to widen that gap, and we can learn how to work in that gap, how to come in that gap, and either leave the refractory period or completely avoid it. And that's going to happen with practice, which is why our Emotional Mastery Academy is mostly practice. You're going to have a lot of practice on these guided practices and meditations, and even in a couple of weeks, people start seeing huge differences in how they can be with their emotions, feeling them with freedom, while before they were just overwhelmed or trying to fight them. So how do you actually do that? Well, we're going to go over the process here in a overall way, and then in the course we're going to actually deepen it and practice. The first thing, like every time that you want to transform or change something, the first thing that you need to do is to become aware of it, right? So one of the things that makes it so hard to regain this choice and feel emotions with freedom and stay in awareness and live the refractory period is because the refractory period captures your attention and your awareness, and so it makes it harder for you to become aware that you're in it. And if you're not aware that you're in your refractory period, then how can you even live it, right? So the first step is actually to become aware. The first step is this recognize step. You have to recognize that you're in the refractory period. And how do you recognize? Well, you're going to have to practice recognizing your emotions as they are happening. And you do that through emotional awareness. So emotional awareness is the core skill here to be able to feel with freedom. It's first you need to feel. Then comes the freedom part. But for now, so feeling with freedom, there's the feeling and then there's the freedom part. But the first step, you need to actually recognize that you're having that emotion. You actually need to be feeling it. And that's the job of emotional awareness. Emotional awareness simply means that you are feeling your emotions, and that is done by paying attention to your body. When you're feeling your emotions, there are sensations in your body. So you use your interoception, that's the scientific word for it, to feel the sensations in your body. And you also have your introspection in your mind. You also pay attention to the changes in your mind. So when your thoughts change, the way you're thinking, your feelings, the kind of attention that you have, all of those are changes that you can recognize and recognize that you're feeling an emotion. But for most people, this is quite hard to do because most people are highly disconnected from their bodies and their minds. They don't have a lot of emotional awareness. And this is because your entire life you've been taught to disconnect. This is because you have a society that teaches you to disconnect from your body and from yourself. And so most people are highly disconnected from it. That's one of the main reasons. The other main reason is because actually when it's not safe for you to feel your emotions, when you have a lot of dysregulated emotions and stress and like trauma, so a lot of emotions inside of you that you're not feeling safe to feel, that you actually don't like feeling your emotions, then your system is actually going to like decrease and block that emotional awareness to prevent you from feeling all of those emotions so that you don't have to feel them because they're not safe for you. So another reason why most people don't have emotional awareness developed is because they have a strong like inner emotional dysregulation, emotional unsafety, many emotions inside of you that you don't want to feel, that are difficult, and so your system has learned to disconnect yourself from your inner experience so you don't have to feel those things. And that's like a vicious cycle, a negative cycle, because many studies have also showed that a lack of emotional awareness, or you can use the scientific word alexithymia, so that's a lack of emotional awareness, is very strongly correlated to emotional dysregulation. So this also means that the less emotional awareness you have, the less you can work and regulate your emotions, so the more they become dysregulated. So emotional dysregulation disconnects you from emotional awareness, and then you have lower, and because of that you have more emotional dysregulation, and the cycle goes on and on. So you're going to have to learn how to recover, how to strengthen that emotional awareness. And the really good news is that emotional awareness is like a muscle. You can practice it, and as you practice, you'll develop it and it becomes stronger. And as I was saying, our students sometimes in a couple of weeks or 1 or 2 months sense a very profound difference in how they experience their emotions. And the good news is that you're actually only learning this now after developing inner safety. So this means that as you develop this emotional awareness now, you're going to learn the practices to do this. But the practice is just like staying with your emotions every day. Take some time, go meditate, practice and feel an emotion. Be with your body as you feel it, pay attention to it, and be with your mind as you feel it. Pay attention to your thoughts, feelings, attention, everything. And just be safe with it. And since you have cultivated inner safety before, now it's actually going to be safe for you to develop that emotional awareness. Well, before it was. So that's why we follow this order. So here we go. Emotional awareness is our first step to be able to live the refractory period and feel with freedom. It's the feeling part. And the more you develop it, the more you cultivate it, the more you'll be able to do this first step of recognizing the emotion. Now, there are different stages in which you can recognize an emotion during the refractory period. And at first, like for most people, they don't even recognize their emotions at all. Only after the refractory period ends, only after the emotion ends, they recognize it and they're like, oh, I was emotional. But as you develop this emotional awareness, you're actually going to be able to recognize your emotion during the refractory period, when the emotion is already at its strongest. Maybe before you make that behavior or you say that thing, but you already recognize it. Oh, I'm feeling that anger, or I'm feeling that anxiety, or whatever it is. That's when you will be able to first recognize the emotion during the refractory period when the emotion is at its strongest. That's when it's easiest to recognize because the sensations are so strong. But then as you practice more and more emotional awareness, your awareness will become more vivid, more subtle, or more able to detect subtle sensations. And so you'll be able to detect your emotions starting earlier, even earlier. And as you do that more and more, even before the refractory period actually settles in, because there is a moment where the emotion is beginning, starting to come up, but it hasn't yet taken control of your mind. You're still not yet in the refractory period. And so you can recognize it even before you go into the refractory period, which is harder to recognize there. But if you recognize it before the refractory period, then it will be actually easier to feel with freedom, because you're not in the refractory period, so you just have to avoid it, not go there. Instead of, if you recognize it in the refractory period, you have to actually leave the refractory period or shorten it. So the earlier that you recognize the emotion, it's harder to recognize it, but it's easier to feel with freedom if you recognize it there. So that's the trade-off. And with a lot of practice, in my experience, it's even possible to recognize an emotion while it's still being appraised, while the trigger is still being triggered. And then you have a lot of power there to transform it right at the trigger. All right. So this is the first step, recognize, and it's very powerful. And for that, you need emotional awareness. However, recognizing your emotions is not enough. If that was enough, then you'll have emotional awareness from the beginning and that would be enough. But the reason why it's not enough is because just recognizing that you are inside the emotion, and usually inside the refractory period, doesn't help you get out of it. And this in fact can be a problem. You can recognize that you're inside the emotion, but you're still inside it. You're still in the refractory period. And so this can be hard. And what happens here is that sometimes when people start learning to recognize their emotions, they are like, now I know I'm angry, but I don't want to be angry, or I don't want to do that thing that I know is going to harm me, or say that thing that's going to harm my relationship. So instead of going back to that inner safety that we learned in the past module, they go and like, I don't want this anger. I recognize it. I'm here, but I don't want it. So they go back to fighting it, go back to suppressing it or avoiding it. And this is what I call a reactive reaction. So we have the automatic reaction, which is the thing that the emotion makes you do automatically if you're just inside a refractory period. But then there's also this second danger that sometimes can be even worse than the automatic reaction, which is the reactive reaction. That's how I call it. And that happens when you do recognize the emotion while inside the refractory period. But instead of leaving the refractory period, you don't leave it. You try to change the emotion, change your experience, change your behavior before leaving the refractory period, while you're still in it. So this means that the way that you're going to deal with that emotion is still going to come from inside that refractory period. It's still going to be coming from a place of survival and dysregulation. So you're going to go back into that fight or flight mode. But this time the fight or flight is against your emotion itself. It's against it. So you're going to try to, let's say, I'm going to try to not feel this anger. I'm going to resist it, suppress it. Or I'm going to try to avoid it. I'm going to distract myself or numb myself, whatever it is. And these are the reactive reactions. So reactive reactions are one of the most harmful things that we do to ourselves. And they are all attempts of that we have to change or not feel or stop an emotion and its consequences while we're still inside it, while we're still inside the refractory period without inner safety, from a place of survival, because you're still inside that refractory period. And they are they categorize themselves into three states, into three main levels, into three main types. The first one is the resistance or the suppression, which is like the fight. You're trying to fight the emotion, you're trying to resist it, not feel it, suppress it. The second one is the avoidance. You'll try to avoid feeling what's coming here. You try to distract yourself, numb yourself, go doom scroll, whatever it is, and smoke, whatever it is. Or change subjects, or not have that difficult conversation. And then the third reactive reaction is the discharge category, which is when, to not feel that emotion, you try to discharge it onto something or someone else. And that's usually where things like blaming, shaming, redirected actions like punching a wall can be like that. For example, you're angry at something inside of you and you talk bad at your spouse or friend. Those are discharging, redirection. So you have that emotional energy and you're trying to discharge it onto something or someone else. So blame and shaming is the most typical here. Whenever you see someone blaming someone for something, you can be sure that they are trying to not feel an emotion. That's what's really happening. So those, and then inside of them, you're going to have a lot of different sub-reactive reactions. And like, you just think about all the negative things that you do when you have emotions, all the unhealthy behaviors and patterns and habits that you have in your life. All of those are reactive reactions. All of those are you trying to not feel or change or stop an emotion while you're still inside the refractory period. And for many of us, these reactive reactions have become so like automatic that you're sometimes even doing them without even recognizing that you're doing them. They have become almost your new automatic reactions. And they are a problem because, first of all, they actually don't work to change the emotion because you're still inside the refractory period, so you're actually acting from the emotion. Even when it seems like they work, even like when resistance or suppression seems like it works, it's actually just accumulating more of that energy inside you. And so second of all, eventually that energy will have to explode somehow, and it will explode or come out in a much worse and unhealthy way. And third reason, by doing that, by fighting your emotions like that or avoiding them, you are still not listening to them. So you are still missing on the important information and wisdom and energy that the emotion has to give you. That would let you heal and grow, but you're still missing out on that. So we don't want to have a reactive reaction. And there's a real danger that when you learn to recognize your emotions while they're happening, you're going to reactive reactions because you'll recognize them more, but you'll want to stop or fight them more while you're still inside the refractory period. And that's why our process has a very important second step. And that second step is the step of allowing the emotion. This step is critical to feel emotions with freedom and to regain your choice and awareness. Is critical. After recognizing, it's critical to do the second step. So first recognize, second allow. That's super critical because this is what's going to help you avoid the reactive reactions. You recognize an emotion and the next thing you have to think is allow. Because if you don't do that, you're going to go back to fighting the emotion, suppressing it, avoiding it. You're going to have a reactive reaction with all those negative consequences. So just think allow the emotion. And allowing just really means like the emotion is here, allow it to be. Open yourself to it, welcome it, even welcome it. And saying this like to someone on the street might be like hard. How do I do that? How do I do that? Welcome my emotion. I actually don't want to do that. But for you, if you're following this course, the Emotional Mastery Academy, we just came from a very powerful module 2 on reconnecting with safety. So you have that now. And this allow step is actually just doing that. It's reconnecting with that safety, but now while the emotion is there. And that's how you start bringing safety to the emotion. So this allow is really just coming back to inner safety. Be like, I can be feeling this. You can even tell yourself, this emotion is welcome. This emotion can exist. This emotion can be here. I can welcome it. That's all that's needed. That's all that's needed to drop the fight or the avoidance or the discharging. That's all that's needed. And this second step of allowing is very powerful. It's going to change completely how you experience your emotions. That's the step that transforms feeling an emotion into feeling it with freedom. It's when you start allowing it. And now you are equipped to this. So these two steps, they are like the turning point. Here you go from being controlled by emotions to maybe trying to control your emotions back, which is still being controlled by emotions, to finally starting to actually feel them with freedom. It's not full freedom yet. Here we have the next steps to go through, but it's in this allow, when you actually start to allow your emotions, that the freedom starts to be possible. And this step is very critical. So practices, we are going to practice this in the module, in the course, allowing the emotions to be there when you recognize them. But now the third step is also critical here, because that's the thing. When you say, oh, but if I allow my emotion, I'm just going to be overwhelmed by it, right? That's what I know. Like, if I allow, it's such a strong emotion, like this anger inside of me is too strong. I cannot allow it. It's going to overwhelm me and make me do things that I don't want, and say things that are bad for me and my relationships. I cannot allow it. So that's where the third step comes in. The third step is actually where you are able to not only start feeling the emotion, but also to not be in the overwhelm. Or if you are in the overwhelm, to leave the overwhelm. And for that, we need to understand what overwhelm really is. So many people are scared of emotional overwhelm, and they think that to avoid the overwhelm, they have to fight their emotion or not feel it or not be with it. But as you're going to understand right now, that's actually the opposite. And what the not listening to the emotion and fighting it and not being with it, it's actually what's creating the overwhelm. So let me explain you. Why do your emotions overwhelm you? Well, in a way, because, as we were saying before, because if they are in that survival mode, they needed to pay full attention to it, right? They needed to just be there in that state. So, in a sense, our emotions are doing that because they are feeling a threat, a lack of safety. And so, on one hand, we're going to have to bring them safety. That's going to come also in this process. But on the other hand, even before we can do that, we already started bringing that safety with the allow step. So if you think about it, when you're allowing your emotion, you're already bringing them some safety. So that's already happening there, and we'll do more of that later. But there's another very important component of overwhelm. And the very important component of overwhelm is the following. Your emotions, remember this, they are messengers, and they have very important messages to tell you. They need you to listen to them. They need you to, they have, especially when it's regarding survival, they have a critical message to give you. You have to listen to them, or they feel like you will die or be harmed. So they really are very, very keen on making you listen to them. Now, here's what happens. You don't like the message. So you don't want to listen to the emotion. You start trying to fight the messenger back. So you're trying not to listen to them. And emotions, they're kind of like children inside of you. So imagine you're a child and you have a very, very important critical message, something that you have to say to your parents, for example. It's like really important. It's life or death, or it's going to harm you. So you have something really important to tell them, and you go and try to tell them that, but they don't want to hear it, so they ignore you, or they push you back, or they distract themselves with something else. What are you going to do? It's such an important message. You have to get more of their attention, so you're going to put yourself in front of them. You're going to try to get their attention, scream, push them, pull their clothes, try to drag them, try to grab their arm and make them look at you, try to make as much noise as possible, right? You're going to try to overwhelm them so they can pay attention to you. And their emotions, they're doing exactly the same. The reason why they're overwhelming you is because they're trying to get your attention, especially when they feel like you don't want to give them your attention. And that's if you're going to think about it right now, the emotions that most overwhelm you are the emotions that you most don't want to hear and feel. And now, switch that around. The emotions that you don't want to feel or hear are the ones that most overwhelm you. That's how it actually works. They are overwhelming you because you don't want to feel them or hear them, and so they need to overwhelm you to get your attention. The more you try to fight them, resist them, avoid them, the more intensely they will need to overwhelm you and make you feel them and like just completely get control of you so you can finally pay them attention. And this fight escalates, right? And the more overwhelming they become, and the more you try to fight them, and so on and so on. So the real reason for emotional overwhelm is emotions wanting to be heard that you don't want to hear, that you don't want to feel. And this means, like, just like that child, if you were to actually stop and pay attention to them and like really give them your attention and your curiosity and your interest, the child would no longer need to overwhelm you. They would relax and soothe. And exactly the same with your emotions. If you actually stop in that moment and give them some interest, some attention, that's going to help them soothe a lot. And so the third step here is what we call interest or attention. And it's counterintuitive. The way to stop the overwhelm and to feel our emotions with freedom is to actually pay them attention and be with them. And you're going to notice that as you do that, your emotion will soothe. Because that's exactly what it's looking for, what it needs. It seems like, oh, if it's already overwhelming me so much, so if I paid attention, I will lose myself. It's the opposite. Do that. Allow it, and then actually get interested in your emotions and pay attention to it. What is this emotion here? What is it making me feel? What does it want to tell me? Let me actually look at your emotion, and you can like transmit this interest to your emotion, this attention, this care. You're here. Actually, yeah, I want to hear you. I want to be with you. Tell me. You don't need to overwhelm me. You can even make this like this agreement with your emotion. Yeah, I want to listen to you. I'm going to listen to you and hear you, but for that you have to not overwhelm me, because if you overwhelm me, it's harder for me to help you, okay? And 10 times out of 10, whenever I do this with my students and clients, the emotion agrees very happily. This emotion is like, yes, please, yes, that's exactly what I need. I'm happy to not overwhelm you if you pay attention to me and you listen to me and you listen to my message and you help me. And that's why this third step, critical step, very powerful, is what I call interest. Take interest in your attention, pay attention in your emotion, pay attention to it with wonder, with curiosity, and actually go into it wanting to listen to it. Just know that as you do this, you can do this agreement with your emotion, that as you do this, the emotion will calm down, soothe, and be like, yeah, like, I'm much calmer now, you're listening to me. And the emotion can still be stressed and really wanting you to help, but it's not overwhelming anymore. And that's where things start to change completely in the way that you feel your emotions. That's when you start to be with them, not in them. That's how this happens. And this is the third step, interest. And this third step naturally leads to the fourth step, where this separation between you and your emotions actually completes in a way, which is the non-identification step. So non-identification, it means that you are still with your emotion, but you're no longer identifying with it. Because before, your emotion is overwhelming you. In a way, in internal family systems, they say it's blended with you. So you are the emotion. You and the emotion are the same. The emotion is like blended with you to make you pay attention to it. But the best way that you can pay attention to it is actually by being with it. Like you here and the emotion next to you here. And so as you pay interest to your emotion, as you pay attention to it, you are already creating this unblending process, this non-identification process, where there's you and there's your emotion, and you're there with each other, but you're not in it anymore. You're not it anymore. So just the act of paying attention to it already creates this distance, this unblending, which is critical for you to feel your emotion with freedom. And be very precise. This distance is not about you distancing yourself from the emotion, like to not feel it, to go away from it. It's actually distancing so you can be with it. It's just so you are not blended with it, so you can be with it and offer it the safety and attention that it needs. And as I was saying, just by you paying attention to it, just by you starting to like be curious about it and pay attention to it, you already start this unblending process, because if you're paying attention to something, you cannot be that same thing. You're already creating that distance. I'm the observer and here is the emotion. But in this fourth non-identification process, that's where you go all the way into that. And your goal here is, the first step is really to feel like, I'm with my emotion. I'm not in my emotion. And There are different things that you can do to help here if it's being still hard to unblend from the emotion. There are techniques like labeling, where you give a short name, a short label to your experience, how you're feeling. It helps you create more of that distance, that observation. There are techniques like grounding, which this is like double-edged sword. So the way that grounding is usually taught is actually in the way that I don't recommend. Grounding is usually taught as a way to disconnect yourself from your emotions. Like, what grounding is you pay attention, you bring your attention to something other than the emotion, like your body sensations, the physical sensations around you, images, sounds, to ground yourself in the present moment. But this is usually taught in a way to like disconnect you and go away from the emotion, which is not what we want to do. I don't need to explain anymore, right? It makes the emotion feel more disconnected. It wants to overwhelm you again. It's re-traumatizing, so we don't want to do that. The way that I teach grounding is actually you want to do that. So you're thinking, the way you think of that is in a way you are returning to yourself. You are using that to return to presence, to return to inner safety, so that then you can be with the emotion. So this grounding that I teach is not like disconnect from the emotion and come back to your present self. No, it's actually, hey emotion, I really want to be with you right now and be with you with safety and listen to you, but right now you're overwhelming so much, so let me just come to myself and so I can reconnect with inner safety, and then I can be with you. It's always with the goal of coming back to the emotion and feeling it. So there's this grounding technique as well. Most regulation techniques can work here to give you this a little bit more distancing and non-identification with emotion. Just make sure you use them to come back to the emotion. So again, this fourth step is non-identification, and that's where finally you are with the emotion, not in the emotion, not the emotion. And this is almost the full process. If you go through these 4 steps, so recognize, allow, interest, non-identification, once you are here, you are feeling the emotion with freedom. You did it. Congratulations. That's all that was needed. So recognize, allow, interest, non-identification. These are the 4 steps that help you go from hijacked by an emotion to being free while feeling it, to feeling it with freedom. So these are the 4 steps, and by the end of these 4 steps, you are, just think about it, you are still with your emotion, you are feeling it, it's there with you, you are fully feeling it, but you're not being overwhelmed by it anymore, you're not being controlled by it anymore, you're not in it anymore, you're with it. And this means you feel free, you're not controlled by it, it's there with you, but you're free, and you also have the power to choose your response and to do what you do in the information that the emotion is giving you. So that's the best of both worlds. You're still listening to the emotion, you're still getting its information, amazing. And at the same time, you are free to choose what to do with that. And the emotion is happy because you listen to it. So it's beautiful. And these 4 steps, they are what creates the practice that is called RAIN. Recognize, R, allow, A, interest, I, and non-identification, N. So that's the practice of RAIN. And RAIN, you might have heard this acronym before for this practice, but here it's explained fully step by step how it works to help you feel with freedom. RAIN. However, there's one more step that we can add here, and some practice, if you have seen this RAIN acronym before, you might have seen the N as non-identification, or you might have seen the N as nurture. For us, we're going to use both, so we can add a 5th step, another N. We can still call it RAIN practice, but we can just add a 5th step because it's still very important, and that's the N, nurture. So this is what becomes possible after you've left the refractory period. Now you're with the emotion, you're not identified with it, you're with it, and now you can offer it inner safety. That's the thing it needs. Remember, the reason why the emotion was dysregulated in the first place and was making you be in a refractory period was because it was coming from survival mode, feeling that there are some threats, some lack of safety. And usually, almost always, that lack of safety is some internal threat, some sense of internal unsafety. And so in this final step, the nurture step, what you do is you're with emotions, so you reconnect with your inner safety and you just nurture the emotion. You just offer it the love, the compassion, the welcoming, the kindness, the inner safety that you have learned to reconnect with and bring in module 2. Now in this is how it ends. You left the refractory period, and now you can give your emotion what it needs from you, which is your safety, your inner safety. All the things that you learned in the previous module are perfect to use here. And this is the final step where everything culminates, because again, the reason why the emotion was so dysregulated was because there was some unsafety, and as you bring it safety, it's going to start soothing. So you are with it now, you're feeling it with freedom, and as you bring it safety, it's going to start soothing, relaxing, giving you all the information and wisdom that it has to give you, and most importantly, transforming itself into something more aligned that actually helps you. And this transformation process that happens, it becomes possible here once you have done RAIN. And then the actual process that we go further, we go deeper and help the emotion transform and listen fully to it. That's going to be a deeper process that we're going to learn in the 5th module, Rewire Your Triggers. And that becomes only possible after you've done RAIN. So RAIN unlocks this possibility just by bringing safety, just by doing this process. This is already unlocked, but then we're going to learn how to do this even more deeply and effectively in that module. For now, congratulations, you have the full RAIN process. Recognize, allow, interest, non-identification, and nurture. And this is the path from hijacked to free. This is how you feel emotions with freedom, and this is going to transform your life. From now on, whenever you're feeling any emotion, especially difficult ones, you're going to be able to not be controlled by it, not be overwhelmed by it, regain your choice, regain your awareness, choose your constructive behavior, but still be with the emotion, still feel it, still listen to what it has to say, still grow from it and heal from it. And that's the best of both worlds. And that's going to change literally every area of your life. When you are able to do this, everything changes. And you're going to see how you apply it as you apply that. So I hope you enjoyed it. And remember, RAIN. Whenever you're feeling a difficult emotion, just tell yourself RAIN. And just that word can help you already start doing the process. Remember, just like when there's a lot of dust in the air and it rains, it settles and you can see clearly again. This is what the practice of RAIN does to you. There's a lot of dust in the air, you practice RAIN, your mind settles and you can see clearly again. As a last comment, we're not going to go deeply into this here today, but there are some moments where RAIN, like the emotion is so strong, or you have just started doing it recently, so you're really not feeling able to do the full RAIN and be feeling your emotion with freedom. So we have another practice that we can use in those moments. That's the wise break. And the wise break is when you recognize RAIN is not enough right now, so you actually need to take a wise break. And the wise break is you're going to actually take some space away from the emotion, doing something that helps you regulate, calm down, come to your inner safety, not something that distracts you or is harmful coping. You actually take some time away from the situation, from the emotion, to help you come back. And you always do this with the goal of coming back to the emotion, okay, later. So when RAIN is not easy to do in the moment, you can take a wise break. Inside our course, we're going to dive more deeply into this technique as well, but just something that is here for you. You might need to take some more space between the emotion to do that, and then always come back to it. And the difference between a wise break and an unwise break is that the wise break, first, you do it with the intention of coming back to the emotion to actually feel it later, not to just avoid it and leave it behind. And second, during the wise break, you're actually doing things that help you regulate and come back to yourself, not distracting or doing unhealthy coping. That's how it works. And so if I had to say one important thing about this process of feeling with freedom is that all of this leaving the refractory period is never about leaving the emotion. Leaving the refractory period is not about leaving the emotion. It's about coming closer to it in a way that you can actually be with it with safety. And that's how you feel with freedom. This is the full process. So now it's time to practice. And we're going to do that in the course. So thank you very much. And next time we're going to go into module 4, because right now you learn how to feel with freedom like in real time, but most of us have a lifetime of emotions that never got that. Like, until now, you never got your emotions at feeling with freedom, so they've been suppressed, they've been resisted, they've been avoided, and they have accumulated. And that's actually what's creating a lot of dysregulation and stress in your life. So now that you have this skill of feeling with freedom, now we're going to be able to go back, go inside and feel all of those emotions that have been stored and release that and finally get unstuck, because they are what's keeping you stuck. So that's going to be the next module. For now, let's practice how to feel with freedom and just enjoy this so much. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Talk the Walk. If you enjoyed it, like us and send it to someone who you think will like it too. We love your feedback and interaction, and you're welcome to leave us a comment or review, ask a question, or just reach out. Lastly, if today's conversation stirred something in you, remember, you don't have to walk this path alone. Our Starsoul Skill community is where these conversations continue, where you can connect with others on similar journeys and access the courses and support designed to help you integrate this work into your daily life. You will find everything at starsoulschool.com, and the link is in the show notes. See you next time.